It's like heaven on earth. And you should see it in the morning because we get the most beautiful sunrises looking east. Southeast in the winter and then central in the summer. Just beautiful. That was my PhD dissertation. That's right. And the reason why I started to work with Haida was because Roy Taylor, who was the director of the UBC Botanical Garden at the time, once I decided that I would like to do graduate work, he was co-author of the flora of the Queen Charlotte Islands, and he knew the Queen Charlotte Islands very well. And Wilson Duff, who was on my committee as well, recommended that I go and visit Florence Davidson, whose photo is on the front cover of Plants of Haida Gwaii. And so that's how we first got introduced to Haida Gwaii, was from those two wonderful men who were both on my PhD advisorship. I'm so grateful to so many people who have been my teachers, the folks on Haida Gwaii, of course, but I got started when I was an undergraduate and decided to wanted to work on ethnobotany, having seen Erna Gunther's book and Tate's Ethnobotany of the Thompson. Christopher Paul was my first teacher, and the reason why was Chief Philip Paul of Sartlip came and spoke in our anthropology class. And when I decided I wanted to learn ethnobotany, I got up my courage and phoned him. And he said, "Oh, you want to learn all our secrets, do you?" And I said, "Oh, no, no, no." And then he laughed. He laughed at me. And I realized I was being teased. And being teased is a good thing, because it means that, people are really kind and nice. And he put me in touch with his dad, Christopher Paul, and who was an absolutely wonderful teacher who was teaching linguistics students at the time. And that's one of the keys to my work as well. I work very closely with linguists who are able to write the names of the plants and document the language and transcribe the words and so forth. So that makes a really good three-way partnership. And for the knowledge keepers themselves, in many cases, they're, because of the residential schools and the loss of land and the inability to get out, they were really happy and enjoyed talking about the plants and telling me stories about them and going out with me and picking berries and doing all those things that they'd done their whole lives. And that's the way to learn. You have to be out. You have to be out and about. You have to be within the forests and at the creeks and the wetlands with them to really learn about the history and the relationships that people had with the land. Well, I've done quite a bit of work over the years, starting with the Tsilhqot'in land claims case and, quite a few other First Nations, including Haida. I think that's a very important part of my work because it's a way of documenting the long-term relationships that people had with their entire territories. Not just the little areas where their winter villages were, but out on the land at camps and trails and places where families would go and stay for months at a time sometimes. Seaweed gathering sites and that kind of thing. So just being able to document that long-term relationship with the entire landscape, not just with the little area where their village site is one of the things that I've been able to do and to demonstrate. And that's helped for people who are making claims to regain access to some of their traditional lands. And there's some knowledge that I don't document, and some knowledge that is private, I would say, and I might be told it, but told not to publish that, because the spiritual relationships that people have with species and that some of the, especially over the winter ceremonials and that that's private knowledge that is not meant to be publicized, and it's one-on-one or within a family, passed down through specialized lines. So I'm always aware of that too, and try to respect those boundaries. But in general, knowing, how many plants there are that people relied on for their food, for their materials, for their medicines, just knowing and understanding that and seeing where those are distributed out on the land and in the waters. I think it's really important knowledge for every one of us who are Canadian, every one of us, whether we're Indigenous or not, to know and understand and to appreciate our human connection with place. And that's another thing that I've been really interested in, and that it's reflected in the big Ancient Pathways books, is the way people learned knowledge and how they shared knowledge across time and space. And you can use the names of the plants to trace the connections that people have with different communities and different language groups even. You can see how Wapato, for example, how the name Hokolos transmitted and occurred as people brought the tubers of Wapato up and traded them across with the Shwetmuk, say from the coast and so forth. You can see the line because people have the same name for that plant across all those languages. So there's lots of other examples of that, really interesting ones. Just for example, the name for soapberry in Haida Gwaii, Hugutlet, is the Masset name, and it's related to the Tlingit. And S or Ish is the Skidigat name, and it's related to Tsimshian, Smalaic language. And that name, As and Is, comes from Hus, which means foaming or frothing. And that's the name Nahuskan, Hushum, Hushum, names for all of the languages around, based on that key word, Hus, which means foaming or frothing.